My father said the electronics cost $1,200. Just for emergencies, he promised. I nodded. Then I got an alert. $800. Casino Royale, Portland, Oregon. I stared at my phone in the hospital break room, the smell of disinfectant and burnt coffee filling my nostrils. My hands went cold. 8 years of being the family bank, and this was how it felt to finally see the truth. Let me back up. My name is Sarah Chun, and for 8 years, I thought I was helping my family. I'm 32, a pediatric nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital. I make $78,000 a year, live alone in Capitol Hill, drive a Honda Civic, and until 6 months ago, I had $15,000 in savings. I was proud of that number. It represented stability, independence, the American dream my parents worked so hard to give us. I was wrong about a lot of things. My family always called me the responsible one. When Marcus, my younger brother, needed money for his first business venture 3 years ago, I co-signed a loan for $18,000. He was 26 then, full of dreams about starting a food truck empire. Just until I get on my feet, Saint Sarah, he'd say with that charming smile that used to make me feel protective of him. When Linda, my older sister, couldn't afford childcare, I gave her $2,000. Then $3,000 more when her car broke down. Then $5,000 when she said the kids needed school supplies and clothes. She's a substitute teacher, single mom of two beautiful children. You don't understand the pressure, she'd tell me. You get to come home to silence. I come home to chaos and responsibilities. When Dad moved in with Linda after Mom died 2 years ago, he started calling me for help too. The pension wasn't enough, he said. Could I add him to my credit cards for emergencies only? Medical bills, he claimed. Groceries for Linda's kids. Your mother always said you had the biggest heart, he'd whisper, and my chest would tighten with love and duty. I believed in family. I believed that love meant sacrifice, that success meant sharing, that being childless meant I had extra to give. My coworkers would joke about how I remembered everyone's birthday, how I always volunteered for overtime when someone needed help. You're too good for your own good, Sarah, doctor. Jennifer Walsh would say that she'd smile when she said it. The truth was, I liked being needed. When Marcus called me his lifeline, when Linda said I was saving her children's future, when Dad called me his angel, I felt important, useful, loved. But love, I learned, isn't supposed to have a price tag. The casino charge was just the beginning. I called Dad immediately, my voice shaking slightly as I tried to stay calm. Dad, I got an alert about a charge at Casino Royale. $800. Silence. Then, Sarah, I can explain. You said emergencies only, you promised. His voice turned cold, defensive. Don't lecture me about money, young lady. After everything your mother and I sacrificed for you kids, I think I'm entitled to a little entertainment. You make more in a month than I see in 6. The line went dead. I sat there in my scrubs, holding my phone, feeling something crack inside my chest. Not heartbreak exactly, recognition. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that word, entitled. I opened my laptop and started going through my credit card statements, really looking at them for the first time in months. $1,200 at Best Buy, $600 at a jewelry store, $300 at a restaurant I'd never heard of. All charges Dad had made over the past 2 months, all marked as emergency purchases in my mental ledger of family sacrifices. The next morning, Dr. Walsh found me crying in the supply closet. Sarah, what's wrong? I told her everything. The loans, the credit cards, the constant requests for money. She listened without judgment, her expression growing more serious with each detail. Honey, she said gently, when was the last time any of them asked how you were doing? Not financially, just you. I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't remember. That weekend, I decided to investigate properly. I pulled my credit reports, gathered bank statements, organized loan documents. What I found made my stomach turn. Marcus hadn't just co-signed one loan with me. He'd used my information to open 3 additional credit cards without my knowledge. The food truck dream? He'd never even applied for the necessary permits. The $18,000 I'd co-signed for had gone straight into online gambling sites and cryptocurrency speculation. Linda's child-here emergencies. I found screenshots on her Facebook of shopping sprees and vacation photos tagged 2 weeks after she'd borrowed $3,000 for her daughter's medical bills. She'd also been claiming me as a dependent on her tax returns for the past 2 years, inflating her refunds by thousands of dollars. But the worst discovery came when I called the lawyer handling Mom's estate settlement. There had been additional distributions, checks made out to me totaling $12,000 over 18 months. Checks I'd never received. "We sent them to your sister Linda's address," the lawyer explained. "She said you were staying there temporarily and asked us to redirect your mail." My hands shook as I hung up. Linda had been stealing my inheritance. Money Mom had specifically left for me in her will. Money that was legally, unquestionably mine. I called Linda immediately. "Oh, those checks," she said casually when I confronted her. "Sarah, you have more than enough. I have 2 children to feed." Mom would want her grandchildren to benefit from that money. "You're being selfish." "Selfish? Linda, that's theft. That money was left to me. You don't have real responsibilities like we do. You sit in your little apartment with your little life, making your little nurse salary, and you think you're better than us." Mom always said you were stingy with your emotions. Maybe she was right about your money too. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost believed her. Almost. Instead, I started documenting everything. I printed bank statements, saved text messages, recorded phone calls where legally allowed. I created spreadsheets tracking every loan, every gift, every unexplained charge. The numbers were staggering. $47,000 to Marcus, $23,000 to Linda, nearly $9,000 in unauthorized charges from Dad. Dr. Walsh helped me see what I couldn't see myself. "Sarah, this isn't love. This is exploitation. They're using your kindness as a weapon against you." I found text messages between Marcus and Linda that a mutual cousin had forwarded to me, concerned about their content. Marcus: "St. Sarah came through again. Got another $5K for the business." Linda: "LOL, she's so desperate to feel needed. Mom always said Sarah would give away her last dollar to feel loved." Marcus: "It's actually kind of pathetic. She doesn't even question it anymore." Linda: "Why would she? We trained her well." Reading those words, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. The love I'd mistaken for family loyalty was revealed as something much darker. They didn't see me as a sister, a daughter, a person deserving of respect. They saw me as a resource to be exploited. I made copies of everything and took them to the police. Detective Ray Morrison, a financial crimes investigator, took my case seriously from the moment I sat down in his office. "Ms. Chen, what you're describing is identity theft, tax fraud, and embezzlement. The fact that it's family doesn't make it legal." I hired a lawyer. I reported Linda's false tax claims to the IRS. I froze my credit and removed Dad's access to all my accounts. I gathered evidence like I was building a medical case, methodical, thorough, unshakable. The confrontation came 3 weeks later. I invited them all to dinner at Linda's house where Dad was staying. I arrived with a folder full of documents and my lawyer's business card. "I know about the gambling, Marcus. I know about the fake tax returns, Linda. I know about the stolen inheritance checks." The room went silent. Then chaos. Marcus tried his usual charm. "Sarah, come on, we're family. Families help each other." Linda went straight to tears. "You're destroying our family over money. My children will suffer because of your selfishness." Dad's voice turned dangerous. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Your mother would be ashamed." I stayed calm. I'd practiced this moment for weeks. "You're right, Dad. Mom would be ashamed. She'd be ashamed that you stole money she left specifically for me. She'd be ashamed that you raised children who think love means exploitation. I urged each of them cease and desist letters. Marcus, you have federal charges pending for identity theft. Linda, the IRS will be conducting an audit of your returns for the past 3 years. Dad, you're banned from my life entirely. Marcus's face crumpled. You can't do this. I'll lose my apartment. I'll have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before you decided stealing from me was acceptable. Linda grabbed my arm. Sarah, please. Think of my children. They need their aunt. I gently removed her hand. They need an aunt who can teach them that actions have consequences. That love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. Dad stood up, his face red with rage. Fine. You're no daughter of mine. Don't come crawling back when you realize you've thrown away your family for money. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. I'm not throwing away my family. I'm discovering I never had one. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new house, watching the rain fall on the garden I planted last weekend. Not an apartment, a house. A real house with 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, a kitchen window that looks out onto a small backyard where I've started growing herbs and vegetables. I used some of the recovered inheritance money for a down payment on this small craftsman bungalow in the Greenwood neighborhood, 15 minutes from the hospital. The house has character, built in 1923, with original hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves that the previous owners had painted over in white. I spent my first month here stripping the paint, revealing the beautiful oak underneath. It felt symbolic somehow, uncovering something that had been hidden and damaged, but was still fundamentally beautiful. My living room has plants in every corner, a fiddle leaf fig by the front window, trailing pothos on the mantelpiece, snake plants that don't mind if I forget to water them during long shifts at the hospital. I bought real art for the walls, not just family photos. A watercolor of Mount Rainier from a local artist. A black and white photograph of Pike Place Market that I found at a neighborhood gallery. The legal consequences were swift and thorough, exactly as my lawyer had promised. Marcus was convicted of identity theft and credit card fraud after a plea bargain that his court-appointed attorney recommended. He received 18 months of probation, 400 hours of community service, and was ordered to pay restitution of $31,000. An amount that will probably take him years to repay on his grocery store clerk's salary. The federal conviction meant he couldn't get a lease on his own apartment. Most landlords won't rent to people with recent felony convictions. He lost his place in Portland and had to move back to Seattle, where he rents a room from a college friend who charges him $400 a month to sleep on a pull-out couch. Linda's consequences were financial rather than criminal, but no less devastating to her carefully constructed life. She had to pay back taxes plus penalties totaling $8,400 to the IRS for claiming me as a dependent when I'd never lived with her, never been financially dependent on her. They garnished her substitute teaching wages, 25% of each paycheck until the debt was satisfied. The audit revealed additional discrepancies in her returns, including unreported income from her failed multi-level marketing schemes, extending her financial headaches for at least 2 more years. She had to sell her Honda Accord and take the bus to work. She and the kids moved from their 3-bedroom rental house into a 2-bedroom apartment across town in a less desirable neighborhood. Dad's consequences were simpler but more final. Any contact with me would be considered harassment and could result in a restraining order. Through family friends, I heard he moved to Arizona to live with his sister, my Aunt Margaret, apparently the same Margaret he'd been taking expensive weekend trips with using my credit card. The Kay Jewelers purchase had been a necklace for her. The spa visits had been couples massages. He'd been conducting a romance on my dime while playing the grieving widower for my sympathy. The inheritance money, all $12,000 of it, was recovered through civil court. Linda had to take out a personal loan at 18% interest to pay it back, since she'd already spent most of it on her LuLaRoe inventory and shopping sprees. My lawyer's fees were $3,500, but getting that money back felt like more than a financial victory. It felt like justice for my mother's wishes for the daughter she'd wanted to provide for even after death. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was emotional, psychological, spiritual even. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't carrying the weight of other people's poor choices. I wasn't checking my credit card statements with dread, wondering what unauthorized charges I'd find. I wasn't fielding calls from family members who only contacted me when they needed something. I wasn't lying awake at night wondering if I was doing enough, giving enough, sacrificing enough to prove my love. My savings account, which had been down to $300 at its lowest point, now has $22,000 in it. I contribute 15% of my salary to my 401k. I bought myself a new winter coat, not because my old one was falling apart, but because I liked the color of the new one. I go to dinner with coworkers without calculating whether I can afford to split the check. I bought a comfortable reading chair for my bedroom and a small smart TV for the living room. These might sound like small things, but they represent a freedom I'd never experienced before. I'm dating someone now, Tom Nakamura, a nurse from the cardiology unit who has kind eyes and steady hands and insists on paying for his own dinners. He's 35, divorced with no children, drives a reliable Toyota Camry, and brings me flowers he bought with his own money. Our first few dates were awkward because I kept offering to pay for everything out of habit, and he kept gently but firmly refusing. "Sarah," he said after our third dinner together, "you don't have to take care of me. I'm not looking for someone to solve my problems. I'm looking for someone to share good times with." When I told him about my family situation, he didn't suggest I forgive them or try to work things out or give them another chance. He didn't say that blood is thicker than water or that I'd regret cutting them off or that everyone deserves a second chance. "I'm proud of you for protecting yourself," he said and kissed my forehead. It takes strength to walk away from people who hurt you, even when they're family, especially when they're family. That's what love sounds like, I've learned. Not the desperate scrambling for approval I mistook for family bonds. Not the transactional relationships disguised as affection. Real love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Real love doesn't come with hidden costs or emotional manipulation or guilt trips disguised as loyalty tests. Last week, I ran into Marcus at Pike Place Market. I was buying fresh flowers for my dining room table, bright, yellow tulips that cost $12 and made me smile every time I looked at them. Something I never used to do when all my money went to family emergencies. He was working at one of the seafood vendors, wearing a stained apron and rubber gloves, his hands red from handling ice all day. He was thinner than I remembered, older looking, with dark circles under his eyes and the kind of pallor that comes from working indoors under fluorescent lights. His hair needed cutting, and there was a defeated slump to his shoulders that I'd never seen before. "Sarah," he said, approaching my flower stall hesitantly, glancing around to make sure his supervisor wasn't watching. "Can we talk, please, just for a minute?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something I'd never experienced before with regard to my family. Complete indifference. Not anger, not hurt, not love, nothing. He was just a person I used to know. Someone who'd once meant everything to me, but now meant nothing at all. I gestured to the empty space beside me at the flower counter, accepting my change from the vendor. "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time in his life, he actually looked like he meant it. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I know what I did was wrong." The gambling, the credit cards, lying about the business, all of it. I'm in therapy now, court-ordered, but still. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I held my tulips and waited for him to continue. "The thing is, I'm in trouble again." "Not gambling," he added quickly, seeing my expression. "I haven't placed a bet in 6 months." It's the legal fees, the probation costs, the restitution payments. They take 40% of my paycheck before I even see it. I can barely make rent, and my roommate is talking about kicking me out if I can't start paying utilities. I was hoping, maybe we could work something out. Start over. I've learned my lesson. Family should stick together, right? I smiled then. Not the sad, guilty smile I used to give when I couldn't help enough. Not the fake smile I used to wear when family gatherings got uncomfortable and I pretended everything was fine. A real smile. Free and clear and final. Marcus, I spent 8 years loving you unconditionally, and you spent 8 years laughing at that love behind my back. You didn't just steal money from me. You stole my trust, my peace of mind, my ability to believe that family means something sacred. You made me doubt my own judgment, my own worth, my own perception of reality. I shifted my flowers to one arm and looked him directly in the eyes. You asked me if family should stick together. Here's what I've learned. Real family doesn't require you to bankrupt yourself emotionally or financially. Real family doesn't use love as a weapon or loyalty as a trap. Real family doesn't laugh about your kindness behind your back while planning new ways to exploit it. I started walking toward my car, then turned back. I hope you get your life together, Marcus. I hope you find happiness, become the person you're capable of being, learn from your mistakes. I hope you discover what real love looks like and find people who can offer it to you, but you'll have to figure it out without me. Walking away from that market, flowers in hand, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Complete freedom from the weight of other people's poor choices. No guilt for not helping. No second-guessing my decision. No wondering if I was being too harsh or too unforgiving. Just peace. I'd confused enabling with love, obligation with affection, family with unconditional access to my resources and emotional energy. I'd mistaken their need for my presence as proof of my importance in their lives, when really their need was for my money and my willingness to solve their problems without asking questions. Now I know better. Real love doesn't require you to ignore red flags or make excuses for harmful behavior. Real family doesn't keep score of sacrifices or use guilt as currency or exploit your good nature as a weakness to be taken advantage of. My house stays clean because I'm the only one living in it, and I respect my own space. My savings account grows every month because I'm not constantly emptying it for other people's manufactured emergencies. My phone doesn't buzz with desperate requests for money or favors or emotional labor I can't afford to give. When my phone rings now, it's Tom asking if I want to try a new restaurant, or Dr. Walsh inviting me to her book club, or my neighbor asking if I want to split the cost of a tree service for our shared maple tree. Sometimes people ask if I regret my decision, if I miss my family, if I think I went too far. If I worry about growing old alone without family support, if I feel guilty about Emma and Jake losing their aunt, the answer is always the same. I miss the family I thought I had. I don't miss the family I actually had. I miss the fantasy of unconditional love and mutual support. I don't miss the reality of being treated like a walking ATM with abandonment issues. As for Emma and Jake, I think about them often. I hope Linda uses this experience to teach them about consequences and responsibility. I hope they learn that love doesn't mean taking advantage of people's kindness. I hope they grow up to have healthy relationships with money and boundaries and respect for other people's generosity. But mostly, I hope they never find themselves in a situation where they have to choose between their financial security and their family's approval. I went exactly as far as I needed to go to protect myself from people who saw my love as a resource to be exploited rather than a gift to be treasured. What do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough?